welcome to Tales from the Gutter, a scandalous podcast. Scandalo.
Oy, oy.
Old scandal. Always dead subjects.
Oh, yeah. No, they're always dead.
I feel like we should remind people that once in a while.
Every now and then.
Yeah.
I'm your girlfriend from Canada, Mikki Lexa.
Or are you always that now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying a new thing.
Oh, it's good. Okay, well, obviously I'm your internet boyfriend, Blake Hunsley.
No, I'm Brent Robertson.
You're like your pen pal from Norway.
Do you know Brent Robertson?
Hello.
He makes very good Scottish sweet balls.
Scottish sweet balls. Damn. It's just a cookie. It's just a sweet ball. Oh, we didn't take the cookie break between episodes.
Oh, no, the cookies.
That's okay. We'll have cookies at the end.
Yeah, we'll eat cookies at the end. Sorry, listeners.
That's okay. Sorry, host. I'm trampling all over your intro.
No, my intro's done. This is all your.
Oh, it's all me?
This is your nonsense.
Oh,
now.
good. Well, it's definitely a lot of nonsense this week.
Awesome.
So my suggested episode title is WWDJODST, which will be explained subsequently. Also, which will be explained subsequently, is my use of a certain ethnic slur, shall we say, during the course of this, which I chose to use the word instead of the traditional, allusion to a letter word.
Okay. Only
because it's used in the historical context, and then there's another explanation of why following it almost immediately after. So stay tuned. Try not to be outraged.
Okay.
There is a reason, and it's all in the interest of fairness, if you can believe it or not. But have fun yelling at us about that.
I got the fear now.
There you go. That's okay. Well, we're going to start with transphobia, so you should have the fear by now.
Oh, delicious.
Yes. Okay. So, I've chosen again to do another 3-parter episode, which I think will be the theme from now on. I don't have a particular, cold, lukewarm, glacial goss this time. I think we have, probably... we either have 1 cold and 2 lukewarms, or we have 1 glacial and 2 colds. Depends on how we measure these things.
Okay.
But I was not inspired by a corpse at the start of this week.
Oh, wow.
I was inspired by an actual living and breathing human being.
Oh, my.
Yes. I was listening to another podcast, which I wrote a little joke in here that I don't recommend doing, but you should. It was the Gayish podcast, and it was funny. But you should also listen to Please Won't You Shut Up. That's also excellent. Search that shiz. But the hosts were talking about canceling J.K. Rowling. Have you heard about this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Brent, I don't think you have, because I hadn't.
No.
But apparently dear old Joanne Kathleen decided to weigh in on a court case about transphobia and workplace firings, essentially. And she decided to weigh in on this on Twitter, because that's smart and rational and a good idea. Her tweet, which in context, and tell me if you agree with this, in context, to me, her tweet kind of read as if it was dismissing the entire concept of trans people on a certain level.
Yeah, that's definitely a big thing about it.
Yeah, there was just a little too much shading of that. I was like, let's just say nothing.
I'm sorry, if you've written Gandalf, you better be more open.
She didn't write Gandalf.
Or not Gandalf, the other one.
Dumbledore.
If you write Dumbledore as that type of character, you should be more accepting and more understanding.
Well, no, that's the kind of thing. She has this 90s liberal lampshade progressivism where, Dumbledore's gay in theory, but he's not gay in the story.
He's early Will and Grace gay.
Yeah, exactly. It's later on you can be like, he was totally gay.
Yeah.
And it's like, point to an example, and they go, no.
Yeah. He might as well just have a little lapel rainbow flag, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Yes. So J.K. Rowling's tweet, which pretty much seems to exemplify this kind of attitude, where she's progressive in theory, if not in updated practice. It did what these sort of tweets do and pissed off about half the damn internet.
Yeah.
Now, this is all very unfortunate because we can't talk about J.K. Rowling. Because J.K. Rowling is alive and well, which is a good thing, so don't be a dick. Just because she has problems with dicks and non-dicks and all kinds of things related to gender and sex apparently seem to...
If she happens to drop dead while this show is still on the air, I'm sure we'll talk about something.
I'm sure we will talk about her then. But until that, you can yell at her directly on Twitter if you dare venture into such a fucking cesspool.
If that happens, can we call it J.K. Rowling in the Deep?
Oh, man. That might be the most crass joke that's been made on this podcast, and you're on it with us.
I know.
Wow, I love it.
I wait and hold and listen and...
It's a good thing this is Valentine's Day that we're recording this song, because I just got real romantic feelings towards you after that awful comment. That's great. Alright.
I'm sassy.
You are. And so classy.
Nope.
But we can't talk about JK. Not JKing either. Thankfully, there are all kinds of dead authors out there.
Hooray.
And a lot of them, even the most admired and popular and seemingly intelligent ones, have said and done really dumb fucking things. Whether they've just stepped in it or they've shoved their hand clean up it, here are 3 authors who failed to remember the golden rule. WWDJODST. What would Dean Koontz or Danielle Steele do?
Oh, okay.
That's our golden rule. There's more to follow on this later, including in today's bonus segment, Postscript Fun Facts.
Okay.
All right. First up, we have L. Frank Baum. Does everyone know L. Frank Baum?
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
I don't
Give me
like
your...
where this is going.
Oh, okay, because you enjoy L. Frank Baum.
Yeah, L. Frank Baum is the writer and creator of the Oz series of books.
Wonderful Wizard of Oz. That's right. And more, yes.
My. Oh,
yes,
no.
Indeed. Wrote lots of lovely things.
Oh, no.
From I'll Get You My Pretty to There's No Place Like Home, Baum wrote a lot of memorable things. Fortunately for his reputation, not all of them are remembered equally. Like his printed reactions to the death of Sitting Bull and the massacre of hundreds of Lakota men, women, and children at Wounded Knee.
Oh, no.
Baum, who would later be remembered for his distaste for violence, apparently his whole writing of Dorothy and this whole thing was supposed to be an updating of such, all the violent nursery rhymes kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, he wanted to take the violence out of there because it was better for children,
Okay.
So you have flying monkeys attacking.
No, that's not in the books.
Is that not in the books?
I don't believe that's in the books.
Okay, so no flying monkeys in the books, yeah. Doesn't like violence, yes, at least in fiction. But at the time, he was the editor of a small newspaper in the Dakota Territory, the Aberdeen Sunday Frontier, and he used his position to advocate a solution to what he perceived as America's native problem in the 1890s. One might even call it Baum's final solution.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Here's what Baum wrote in a December 1890 editorial, and I quote, "The proud spirit of the original owners of these vast prairies, inherited through centuries of fierce and bloody wars for their possession, lingered last in the bosom of Sitting Bull." Which is kind of nice.
That's kind of...
Yeah.
Okay.
With his fall, the nobility of the redskin is extinguished, and what few are left are a pack of whining curs who lick the hand that smites them. The whites, by law of conquest, by justice of civilization, are masters of the American continent, and the best safety of the frontier settlements will be secured by the total annihilation of the few remaining Indians.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yes. Yeah.
He went full genocide.
He went full, straight-up genocide. But this is this show, so it gets worse, of course. So he went full genocide for reasons of security for the white settlers at the introduction of this piece.
Oh, dear.
But it turns out Baum had considered the welfare of America's native population as well. He had just decided that genocide was in their best interest as well.
Fuck.
Oh, yes. Baum's editorial continues.
Oh, God.
And again I quote, "Why not annihilation? Their glory has fled, their spirit broken, their manhood effaced. Better that they die than live the miserable wretches that they are. History would forget these latter despicable beings and speak in later ages of the glory of these grand kings of forest and plain."
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Hitler said a lot of that stuff, too.
I would argue that that's much more well-written prose than anything Hitler ever dreamt up, but as fucking off.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is like... At least, I think at least 2 of these authors, of the 3 authors today that we're talking about, I know for a fact, and I believe all 3 have festivals devoted to them, at least in one place around the world. Like, these are 3 people. The last one is a little cloudy reputation-wise, but still widely read. And the first 2 are extremely widely admired.
Sometimes controversy is good.
Sometimes controversy is good, but L. Frank Baum advocated for straight-up genocide. Like, the complete execution of men, women, and children of an entire race.
I think
for their own good.
I think Dorothy's canceled.
That's the thing, is this is all like...
There's
I
only
love the
place of
concept
my
of this
home.
show because we can't cancel culture anything that comes up in this show. Because none of it's like, you know, none of us are Ronan Farrow. We're not digging
Yeah.
this up now. Like,
Yeah, no.
this has all been known. Like, this has been out there for a while.
This is very old.
Speaking of, okay. So Baum's descendants, at least, did their best to clean up his reputation. They publicly apologized for their ancestor being a piece of shit
Oh, yeah.
in 2008. So
Oh, well, at least
we're
they,
good.
at least they got
Well, at
there.
least they remembered.
that fixed everything.
I mean, that was 12 years ago. That's kind of
Crossed off the list now.
Yeah.
What else is on that list?
We're working on things.
Let's not go into that.
Yeah. What else is on that list?
Oh,
Alright.
God, no.
No, we're good with L. Frank Baum. That really seems to be his, you know, that's the only thing he did.
That's the only thing.
But that was the grenade.
He was like, he was an early supporter of women's suffrage. He wanted less violence in children's tales. He did create, you know, some masterful works kind of thing.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like it's really hard to square that. That is a very like bold, open, strident call.
That's a bad early work.
Yeah, for their own good, no less. Yes, yeah.
Oh my God.
All right. Now, shitty as Baum was for this, 1890s Midwest America was not exactly a bastion of liberalism at the time.
I mean, yeah.
So he wasn't the bomb?
1990s Midwest America wasn't exactly at the forefront of progressivism.
Oh no.
2090s probably won't be either.
We'll see how that goes.
We'll see, but we can't really expect much. Like, to be really fair, we can't expect much from L. Frank Baum given the time and place in which he lived. I like to think that even for that time and place, he was on the far edge of, like, grotesque views.
One would hope, but at the
But
same
considering
time,
what was happening to the native population
Yeah.
actively at the time, I think I might be completely wrong about that. I think he probably is a pretty accurate barometer of the public mood.
I think everything in general sucks around all of that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So yeah, time and place. I'm not excusing him by any stretch of the imagination, but for the time and place in which he lived, he probably doesn't stand out as much as he does today. Really.
Yeah.
Okay. But it is absolutely fair to shade him at least a bit here for this.
Dear God, yes.
Yes.
He's a darker gray.
Yeah.
Like, much darker.
This is what I really enjoy about this show is just
Pitch
finding
black.
these people that are like, L. Frank Baum is widely admired, so like, why shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Why shouldn't we throw a little light on his genocidal tendencies?
Point out that, yeah, he also had incredibly evil ideas.
Alright, but if Baum was a product of his environment, then we should be able to expect more from someone a little later on in history from a theoretically more progressive time.
Yeah,
Okay.
I created this show, so I know that's bullshit.
Yes, exactly. And we're heading to an era and some people I know you know about, so hopefully you won't be quite so surprised and appalled. I hope you will be as surprised and appalled, but we'll see. Okay. So we should be able to expect a higher bar of acceptable behavior from someone in the 20th century, theoretically anyway. Especially from an author who's well known for their progressive views and for surrounding themselves with other progressives. Say a science fiction writer, for instance. Okay.
Haha.
And we're not talking about Harlan Ellison today.
No,
Have we talked about Harlan Ellison on the show before?
We have not. I don't believe we've touched
Okay,
on
Harlan
Mr.
Ellison is getting his own episode.
He would need one.
Yeah, I may even take a step away from the 3-part approach for that one episode.
For Harlan, yeah.
We'll switch that.
No, you can
I'll
do
a full
yeah,
piece Harlan
I'll do
Ellison
a
deep
3.
dive, and you do a 3-part.
I can think of 3 other science fiction writers who are going to get shit on.
Ooh, who? I just want to see if any of them are about to be shot on immediately.
I assume you're doing Isaac Asimov.
I am doing Isaac
Okay, so I won't. Well, depending on what story you do, it'll be Isaac Asimov. The other will be Philip K. Dick. The other will be H.P. Lovecraft, and the other will be the founder of Science Stories or something. I can't remember his name. It was like W.J. something. He's a
Okay, well,
publisher.
we have lots of people for
Yes.
future episodes.
Yeah.
There's lots of horrible people out there. That's great. Okay. But no, we're not talking about Harlan Ellison. But quick low point highlight for anyone out there who's not familiar. Low point highlight, groping fellow science fiction writer Connie Willis's breast on stage in front of the entire audience at the 2006 HereEgo Awards.
Yes.
Yeah. Well
Yes.
done. Yeah. Okay.
Not good.
We're not talking about him today, but we will in a future episode for sure. Unfortunately, we are talking about one of everybody's favorite science fiction writers, yes. Yeah. Not Ray Bradbury was my happy point on this. I am happy to report that Ray Bradbury appears to have been completely flawless.
Yeah, no, he was just a miserable person.
Yes. His main flaw actually seems to be that he claimed computers were a bunch of flim-flam, which I love, but they would never amount to anything.
Flim-flam!
That's such a made-up word.
Flim-flam?
But like,
That's great.
it's
a great word.
It's poppycock.
It is.
It's a great word that means nothing in the literal sense. What is the meaning of
a bunch of
nothing?
hoo-ha.
Yeah. It means
malarkey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Alright. Talking about Isaac Asimov. Gropey, handsy Isaac Asimov. So this is what we're talking about. So I presume you've heard these stories before?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is great. Okay. Well, it's not great, but, you know.
It's disturbing.
For being before our time, it's very timely.
Yeah.
For right now. So, before we hit up Isaac's bad points, mostly his hands, it's worth pointing out that he had quite a positive reputation, so we'll go in a little here. So when he died in 1992 at age 72, he'd written over 500 books. He was most well known for his contributions to science fiction. He was also a prolific writer of non-fiction books on everything from science to religion to musical theater to limericks, which is a pretty good breadth. I enjoy that.
That's decent.
He was a professor of biochemistry. Mm-hmm. He was a president of the American Humanist Association and the recipient of multiple awards for his work as a writer and as a scientist. He has an asteroid and a robot named after him. Asimov.
Asimov.
I did not know that he was named after Isaac Asimov. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, Asimov has hands, so we'll see. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. According to science fiction writer and historian Alec Naval-Ali, Asimov had attitudes and behaviors towards women that were so unpleasant that they diminished the role of women in science fiction and made that genre less palatable to emerging women writers as a whole. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In an essay for the American book review site Public Books, Naval-Ali paints a picture of young Asimov as the kind of guy who would unironically subscribe to an incel subreddit. He wasn't good with women. Women didn't appear in his early works, and when his first marriage didn't work out, Isaac blamed his wife for being sexually unfulfilling. His contemporaries had lots to say about his treatment of women. Naval-Ali writes that his reputation as a groper became a running joke among science fiction fans. The writer and editor Judith Merrill recalled that Asimov was known in the 1940s as the man with 100 hands.
Jesus.
And that he apparently felt obliged to leer, ogle, pat, and proposition as an act of sociability. One of Asimov's editors claimed that the writer had greeted his date by shaking her left breast instead of her hand. Young female fans who wanted an autograph were told that they could have one only if they gave Asimov a kiss. Even the wife of one of his friends complained that his frequent ass pinching was, quote, extremely painful and very degrading.
Jesus.
Lovely fellow.
Just incessant.
This is great, though. Asimov was aware of his own reputation, and for his part, he passed it off as a hilarious act in the classic "It's just a joke, ladies, lighten up" defense. He even wrote a satirical book about it in 1971 called The Sensuous Dirty Old Man, where he notes that, quote, the question then is not whether or not a girl should be touched. The question is merely where, when, and how she should be touched.
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm. At the time, most people ate up the whole hilarious lecture routine, but under examination, Asimov's behavior is not only gross, it was damaging to the women he targeted, and science fiction is likely a weaker genre because it was deprived of the potential contributions of many of these women who came into his orbit. The conclusion of Naval-Ali's essay is pretty grim. We'll quote here, his behavior naturally closed him off to the creative women at the beginning of their careers. Some of these women flourished in editorial roles, but others had reason to be wary of the most famous writer in science fiction, and they had to work unassisted by many of the factors that had allowed Asimov himself to reach his full potential. This was a tragic loss, and it set the tone for the entire genre. Now, Asimov's sins do not rank up with ethnic cleansing as a win-win.
No.
No.
But he is still a dick.
He's still a dick, but he's also, like, such a towering figure in his genre that you have to shade and weight his dickishness much heavier.
And it's chronic dickitude. L. Frank Baum was a genocidal lunatic, seemingly for one article. He probably held that for two articles. Whereas Isaac Asimov was a sex offender his entire life.
Yes. Yeah.
Repeat
serial aggressive.
Isaac Asimov is the one that I wasn't sure if he has a town festival or not, but I presume he does somewhere.
I'm very certain that somewhere there's an Isaac
sure he
Asimov
does.
festival.
In which case, there's a town festival, at least one town festival for every person on our list of offending authors.
Oh, easily.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
To say nothing of Potterfests in every...
Does Disney count
corner.
as a festival for J.K. Rowling?
No, I think all the Potterfests do. And there's all
No, but
Harry
like the
Potters running it.
Disney, Potter, Disney.
Disney
Disney
isn't
on
with
Harry
Potter.
Potter?
No, that's Warner Brothers.
Yeah, that's what I
Oh,
thought.
Warner Brothers. Sorry.
They have a Potter World at... No, it's Universal Studios.
Universal
they have a
Studios.
Potter
Oh,
World.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So...
So considering Isaac Asimov's prominence and dominance in his field, and considering the fact that it's 3 decades later, we haven't quieted conversations about workplace sexual harassment lately by any means. It seems to still be a thing, particularly in the entertainment industry. It's happening in every industry, but at least they're talking about it.
Yeah.
Right.
They're making a song and dance about it. Dun-dun-dun.
Exactly. What Isaac and L. Frank do have in common is that, again, their shittiness is not that far removed from the accepted attitudes of the time.
Yeah.
Anyone who's watched 15 minutes of Mad Men could figure out that a lot of men in the mid-20th century America treated women with about as much respect and dignity as your average present-day man would give his average fleshlight. But like Baum, we should be able to expect more from Asimov. This was a high-profile, progressive, and self-described feminist.
Yeah.
This was a man who was an early outspoken advocate for the rights of homosexuals before that was a popular cause. Although, apparently on the grounds that gay sex did not contribute to overpopulation, which was his chief concern. And that's helpful in a roundabout way, but
there's that weird eugenics.
Yes!
Just like,
yes, that's exactly it. It's the eugenics thing. Yeah.
Man!
Yeah, I know.
You have to go into the weirdness.
That's the thing. I love science fiction. But if you're going to end up with a eugenicist on your hands, they're probably going to be a science fiction writer.
Yeah. It's a shame.
Yeah. Alright. Isaac Asimov was apparently a man whose own contemporaries thought that he should be kept away from women. And we're going to quote one of those contemporaries here. Whenever he walked up the stairs with a young woman, I made sure to walk behind her so Isaac wouldn't grab her tush. And his gallant, protective white knight of his day was Harlan Ellison, ladies and gentlemen. The man who thought it was super appropriate to grab a fellow sci-fi writer by the tit in front of the assembled who's who of their entire profession.
Yeah.
Even that guy thought Isaac Asimov was a little much.
Oh, that's bad.
I had not heard any of that.
Oh, yeah.
And
no,
I love science fiction. And I love Asimov science fiction that I've read, but...
It's a filthy genre of very dirty men.
Yeah, and again, for the time, that doesn't really surprise me. But
I feel like there's elements of, like, Rick Gervais, like, crassness to Asimov.
Crassness, sure,
like,
but, like, there's a complete disregard for people's physical boundaries. Like,
he was a really weird character, because he used to wear, like, bolo ties all the time, and, like, he spoke very eloquently. Weird guy.
Yeah, and again, like, avowed feminist. Like,
yeah,
but, like, also, like, avowed ass pincher, and, oh, it's funny because of the times, right? Yeah. It's like, is it though? Even people at the times aren't entirely sure.
Complete prick and utopian.
Yeah. We're going... I love this last one so much.
Where are you leading
I
us
love
to?
this
Good
last
God.
one so much. So we started with genocide.
Yeah.
And then we moved all the way down to sexual harassment.
Yeah.
So now we're just going with straight up really shitty reinforcement of shitty social attitudes.
Okay.
So we may have to split the difference on Baum and Asimov when it comes to weighing whether they're completely fucking terrible people on their own or on common products or just common products of their time. Our last author is not going to make us do any such difficult work. Despite living in a time when all manner of xenophobic attitudes were widely shared, English children's author Enid Blyton managed to stand out for being just too much of a shitty racist even for the 1960s.
Oh dear.
Are you familiar with Enid Blyton?
I'm not.
She wrote Brer Rabbit. She wrote, we'll get into some other things she wrote here, but...
She wrote Brer Rabbit?
I believe so. Or she not, or...
Like Song of the South?
No, she wrote, she wrote the Naughty books. She wrote... there's a number of book titles coming out here, but
all right.
she wrote an obscene number of children's books. Like, okay, well, I'm going to keep going here rather than digressing, but like, just, I get the feeling if we were British, we would really know her as a household name.
It would be like, oh, Scandal!
Yeah, exactly. Naughty, I've seen on the television. It's not from our generation, but it's like there's a bunch of shows and movies out there.
Okay.
It's a weird wooden doll
Oh,
character.
Naughty. It's like Pinocchio, British Pinocchio.
Kind of, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Blyton died in 1968 at the age of 71. At the time of her death, she was one of the world's most popular authors of children's books. Since the 1930s, her books have sold over 600 million copies. At her most prolific, Enid wrote up to 50 books a year.
Jesus Christ!
I know. Yeah, so like
Jesus.
Yes, prolific. I think she wrote
That's
in
like
total
She was like
over
Robert
600
Munch,
books.
where like he was just like
That's like Stephen King times Stephen King to the power of cocaine Stephen King.
It's a book a week with 2 weeks off for vacation.
That's frightening.
As we'll get to.
I think she's
no one's
well read.
claiming they were all fucking masterworks, but there. She was also well known for charitable work. She frequently helped to raise funds for a variety of charities supporting children's welfare and animal health.
When? Fucking when?
I know, right? Like, I have no idea. Enid was widely viewed by many as a savvy businesswoman and presumably a fucking workaholic.
Yeah.
Who made a mint off her books and associated works. Her debatable most popular character was the wooden doll called Naughty, who appeared in comic strips and on stage in the West End and still features in many of his own TV shows and movies today.
Okay.
Enid's obituary in the Times called her perhaps the most successful children's author of post-war Britain, but it also very rightly described her as perhaps the most controversial one as well. By the mid-60s, Blyton's works were already being described as, quote, elitist, sexist, and racist in British newspaper columns. Her 1965 book, The Little Black Doll, was particularly poorly received. The book tells the story of Sambo, a little black doll who is hated by his owner and fellow toys alike for his ugly black face. Sambo runs away, but then gets caught in the rain, which washes the black off his skin. Now a pretty inappropriate pink, he goes back home where his owner and fellow toys now see that he's actually pretty fucking great.
Oh my god.
This is the thing, is like, even for the 60s, and it's not even like, there's not even shades of gray here.
No,
this is just straight up gross. Like,
oh god.
Yeah, and it doesn't get any better. Again, I'm risking getting in trouble just by quoting some of her books here, but again, historical context and more reasons to come. But here we go. So, late 1960s Britain may not have been the most racially harmonious time and place in history. No, but even then, most people could tell that the little black doll was particularly fucked.
It's pretty bad.
But while Sambo's story of reverse Rachel Dolezal redemption was particularly blunt, Blyton's earlier works weren't exactly subtle in their racism. In her famous Naughty series of books, this blows my mind, okay? We have the creator of The Wizard of Oz advocating genocide, and this is all the stuff that blows my mind instead.
See,
she's just so publicly awful in children's books.
Now I'm terrified that, like, Rupert Bear was created by a Nazi or something.
I know, right? Alright, okay, in her famous Naughty series of books, Blyton included characters called the Gollywogs. Have you ever seen a Gollywog doll?
Hell.
Yeah.
I had a Gollywog.
Oh god, okay.
my sister owns them.
Oh lord. So, okay, everyone here has seen them.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen them, it's a minstrel show looking fucking rag doll.
Yeah.
You really need to Google, because I can't adequately explain just how fucking racist
It used
they
to
are.
be the mascot for Robertson's Jam.
Yes,
Oh.
it's true.
They're the most racist looking things you've ever seen. It's all the like old Disney cartoons, like really dark black skin with the giant lips.
So traditionally, you make them out of black socks.
Oh my god.
So it's like a bunch of old ratty black socks strung together, stuffed with like whatever you have, and just the facial features are usually like bright red mouth, bright white eyes.
Mhm. Yeah.
Overalls.
So, alright, so Blyton didn't invent the Gollywogs. These have been around in British culture for a while, apparently. But she did include 3 in her books, and then very tastefully gave them the proper names, Golly, Wally, and I'm sorry, but this is historical context, and it really did get published. Nigger. Yes.
Yeah. No, I'm unfortunately more aware of this in terms of references done by other authors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In one book, Blyton had the Gollywog steal Naughty's car and leave him naked in the dark wood, which begs the question, the fuck is happening in British children's literature? If you're offended, if you're offended by my previous use of an ethnic slur, just wait.
Jesus Christ.
Blyton also dreamt up another mischievous, and as Enid would probably say, inscrutable character called Chinky.
I'm gonna have to put a content warning on this one.
So as a side note, this is why I didn't say the N-word earlier, is because Enid managed to put in ethnic slurs twice, and I couldn't have very well said the CH word and have people understand what I was talking about.
Yeah, it's just like, what do you mean? Oh, so you can say that, but...
That's the reason we're equating to terrible things done by Enid Blyton, and I apologize, but for the sake of clarity...
But she said...
These were the proper names of characters in British children's books.
It's like reading Huck Finn all over.
Mm-hmm. Even when they weren't given slurs for names, Blyton's fictional characters were most frequently described as having dark skin, dark eyes, and broadly described foreign accents. When she couldn't be bothered to be subtle about it, Blyton just straight up labeled her villains gypsies and got on with the narrative.
Oh, Christ.
We could also criticize Blyton's works for their casual elitism and sexism.
Shall we?
And for their reinforcement of a proper place for boys, girls, and the rich and the poor. These were all concepts that were pretty common at the time, though. Unlike her racism, which managed to outshine pretty much every one of her contemporaries here.
Oh my god.
Yeah. According to Picador Publishing's Paul Martinovich, Enid Blyton had a novel rejected by Macmillan Publishing in 1960 because it was too xenophobic for the time. During her life and in the years following her death, some of Blyton's books...
That's a feat.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Oh.
It's too much.
Well, it is, but hold on, because we don't live in a perfect world. Everything's terrible.
Okay.
So stay with us here. So some of her books were banned from libraries across Britain, Australia, and New Zealand. Despite all of this, Blyton's works remain extremely popular. Like Baum and Asimov, her commercial success never really suffered because of her personal failings. Even the manuscript that was rejected in 1960 by Macmillan was picked up and published by another publishing house, William Collins, and then printed in 1961 and reprinted twice more after that.
Jesus Christ.
Even with her reputation being more controversial than Baum's and Asimov's, or even Harlan Ellison's for that matter, this seems to be a pretty happy ending for Enid Blyton. Or it would be.
Okay.
If it weren't for 2 more rejections. The first and most recent happened in 2016.
Wait. She's alive?
No.
Okay.
These are posthumous rejections.
Thank God, because what the hell?
No. So the one of these is just to make people feel a little better in case they're still really incensed with her and her supposed positive ending. But then the second one is one that she knew about.
Good karma could be a bitch.
Exactly. So the first posthumous karma happened in 2016 when the Royal Mint was considering a commemorative coin to mark the 50th anniversary of Blyton's death.
Oh dear.
The Mint's advisory committee ultimately decided against this because according to their publicly released meeting minutes, quote, she is known to have been a racist, sexist, homophobe, and not a very well-regarded writer. Which brings us to the most enduring and damning rejection of Enid Blyton's work. For nearly 30 years, beginning in 1938, the BBC maintained a total ban on any radio or television production of Enid Blyton's work. This was not a secret, and Blyton herself was aware of the ban and commented on it in her life. She did manage to get one work done on, I think it was the BBC Women's Hour 5 years before her death, but that was like the one exception. Yeah.
Jesus.
Okay. The reason her works were banned was the publicly known reason why they were banned was not because they were racist, classist, sexist, or homophobic, which they were. But that was all probably kosher when this decision originated in 1938.
Oh God, this is gonna hurt.
The real reason was even worse, at least for Enid Blyton. Her works were banned because they were shit. BBC executives described her books as, quote, second-rate, lacking in any literary merit, and my most favorite of all British expressions that I've ever heard, such very small beer.
Okay.
If there's a lesson to be taken away from this week's gutter, I guess it is that you can be racist, and you can be sexist, and you can be handsy, and you can even be hateful. You can even advocate genocide, as long as you're talented. But if you're not very good, you have to try to behave yourself and avoid controversy. Just always try to remember the golden rule. WWDJODST. What would Dean Koontz or Danielle Steele do? Now it's time for our bonus section. Postscript fun facts.
Oh dear God.
Postscript fun fact number 1. In 1943's The Magic Faraway Tree, and it should be noted here that most of Blyton's books have garbage names,
Yeah.
2 of the main characters were originally called Dick and Fanny. And if any of our listeners don't know why that's hilarious, Fanny is British for what?
Yeah, pussy.
For pussy, yes.
She also had one called Pete Pun and Totally Fart.
What? Enid Blyton?
Yeah.
Okay.
If not, yeah, I think it's one we used. It was like a little nursery rhyme my parents told us.
What was it called?
Pete Pun and Totally Fart.
Are you sure?
That I
that's
do not
something
remember from
your
the list,
parents
and
made
trust
up?
me, for reasons upcoming, I looked through her entire bibliography here, so I don't think that was her.
I
Okay.
suspect your parents are fucking with you.
Yes, good chance of that. Later reprints, Dick and Fanny were changed to Rick and Franny.
Oh.
A lot of changes in later reprints. The gollywogs were removed and replaced with, I think, gremlins. Rather than stripping Naughty nude and dumping him in the dark woods, they stole his hat and shoes, and then later at the end of the book brought them back and apologized.
I see.
Yeah, so
I see.
we still print
Is
them.
it
We still
better?
put Enid Blyton's name on them.
Someone's still making money off this.
Yeah,
shit.
but we changed them quite a bit. Fun fact number 2, and this is just a quick one. Enid Blyton was very publicly a fan of nude tennis.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was said that if you showed up at her home, there was a pretty good chance you would find her playing nude tennis.
Nude tennis.
You can see her swinging with it.
It's nice. It's nice to know that everyone has at least one possible quality, so that's good.
Maybe with the net.
Terrible.
Fun fact number 3. L. Frank Baum's literary works were successful, but he ruined almost every business venture he ever tried his hand at, and went bankrupt at least once. This, along with his public racism, could have made him the Donald Trump of the day, if only he'd been born with Asimov's gropey and presumably tiny hands. Postscript fun fact number 4. WWDJODST is actually terrible advice, because Dean Koontz and Danielle Steele are not actually real. You know the trope about the 1,000 monkeys working at 1,000 typewriters? It's actually 1,000,000, and that's who writes all of Dean Koontz and Danielle Steele's novels.
See, I knew that about Daniel Steele, but I didn't know that about Dean Koontz.
Same author. They also wrote all the titles for Enid Blyton's novels, such as, these are real titles, The Wonderful Adventure, The Secret Island, The Enchanted Wood, The Adjective Noun is not a real one, but I enjoy it, The Book of Bunnies, The Book of Brownies, The Happy Stories Treasure Trove Reader's Book,
Oh, what a pile of shit.
The Adventures of Binkle and Flip,
Think
and of
one-
course, When Dick Met Fanny. That last one maybe not, but I really enjoyed it.
That's all truly horrible. Thank you so much.
These
for your
3 were all truly
contribution.
terrible, truly terrible. Thank you. I had a lot of fun with that.
That was excellent. I really do mean it. That was.
I don't know if I
excellent.
should have had as much
Horrible.
fun with it as I did, but I really enjoyed that.
What 3 people that one I had no idea about before, and 2 that I didn't quite respect, but oh god.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm glad you hadn't heard about L. Frank Baum at all. That one was a bit of a shocker. Yeah, but the other 2, yeah, they were just fun. They were just fun to flesh out.
Well, thank you so much for listening to Tales from the Gutter, a scandalous podcast.
Scandalo.
Scandalo.
Dead scandalo.
If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please ding the thing.
Ding the thing. You
Ding.
can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/mygenderacinema.
Yeah.
That's the only way old people know how to find us. I speak as one of them.
Don't forget to visit HereEgo Productions on Patreon, where you'll find this and other podcasts and videos, plus much, much more. And please show your support by pledging as little as $1 a month, so we can keep bringing these shows to you. Catch you next time.
Bye bye.
See you.